Starcraft 2. A lot of times people say things or they make mistakes when they're playing games. And a lot of times it's because the very, very fundamental aspects of the game are not very clear to the players. So, I want to address that. Imagine today is your very, very first game of StarCraft, and you say, how do I want to start to learn StarCraft? And the very first thing that I would say is that learning StarCraft depends on your level. Much like you would do martial arts, you may say that I only want to do martial arts for 2 years, and therefore you don't want to be a black belt. So you may not learn very, very advanced things because you may not be able to develop the dexterity or the flexibility, the mindset to be able to get to those things and perform them adequately. And there are some very, very fundamental ideas that everybody should know that is going to be the focus of what I'm going to say here. Okay. So, uh, so going to this question then of why you want to play. If you want to decide where your goal is, I believe a lot of it comes down to how much effort are you willing to put into this. Okay, most people play StarCraft to have fun, and I think that should be your primary purpose when you first play. If you're not having fun, I don't think StarCraft's a good game for you. It's a competitive game, just like you would have some sport that's competitive. It's meant to be played against other people, and it's online, and you're going to lose a lot to people who are better than you. That's fine. Eventually, though, you do have to decide, how much you want to do. Most pros play for about 10 to 12 hours a day, between 5 and 7 days a week. Strong amateurs will play 2 to 3 hours nearly daily. Those tend to be masters level players on the servers. The amateur people, which usually are about gold to platinum, play 3 to 4 games a week versus other players 1v1s, or you could play just for fun. And if you decide that you just want to play just for fun and you're not interested in actually improving, the StarCraft may not actually be the game for you. A lot of people play MOBAs when they don't want to play a game that's intense or stressful, that you have to constantly be really stressed and worried about what's going on in a game. Um, the MOBAs would be like Defense of the Ancients, like Dota 2, Heroes of New Earth, Smite, League of Legends. Those all tend to be games, and there are plenty of reasons why you'd play each one. Heroes of New Earth tends to go faster. League of Legends has a very, very easy learning curve, and there's lots of things that make the game very easy to play. Dota 2 is very, very high level competitive. It is designed for people who play games seriously. But it's not. You don't have to be as stressed and running around. Usually, the APM in those games is around 115 to 120. Um, in StarCraft, usually it's close to 300. That means that 300 means that during every 1 second of the entire game, you're doing 5 to 6 things. Okay. So the next thing that you would say is to start playing StarCraft, you have to start with mechanics. Now, you could think of those as like a basic punch, a kick, something like that, where it's a motion that you have to become very, very familiar with. You have to have good balance. Everything relies around your mechanics. They're the setup to the style that you play the game. Organizationally, you'll hear terms like people's build order, which is the order in which they build things and when they're planning on doing their attacks. The execution of the build order, meaning how well can they, when they go out and they do the attack, can they lead for it to do damage. The macro side of it tends to be sort of the order in which you're building things to do things. Another organizational aspect is looking at the map and mini-map most of the time that you play, and then the consistency aspect of the game is being able to not just do something, but be able to do it in the exact same order, such that in this scenario you always do it exactly the same to maximize your ability to have the best possible build that you can have. The other side of it is the dexterity, which is the actual ability for your hand to move fast enough for your pointer precision to go somewhere. Your micro, meaning your ability to move your units. There's the rule of 3, which is a very, very common rule in terms of micro, where if you swipe more than 3 times to move your units, then you're not macroing very well. The Another aspect is being able to use control groups, using camera hotkeys, and in general, you don't want to use more than about 4 to 5 control group hotkeys or camera hotkeys, because you don't want your hands sliding all over the board. You can still have your hands slide over the board to some degree, but in general, you mostly want to keep everything sort of all grouped together. In addition to the mechanics, then there's specific mechanics for each race, and I'll spend a little bit more time talking about the races throughout the rest of what I'm planning on doing here. For Terrans, most of what Terrans use is something called tab building. Usually they use the numbers 1 and 2 for their army and special units. The special units being such as ravens or ghosts, or even sometimes Vikings or banshees. Usually they put their command centers, armories, and ebays on 3. They put their barracks, factories, and starports all on 4. Protoss, they use 1 for the armory, 2 for the mothership core and air, 3 for the Nexus forges, cybernetics core, and Twilight councils. And usually they put all of their tech buildings like robos and stargates on 4. They use the W key in general to warp in units, and so you don't have a key for all of your gateways. Zerg, you usually use 1 for your army, 2 for your queen spreading creep, or your mutalisks or corruptors like your area units, or your infestors. Generally, they use 3 for the hatcheries, 3 for the queens, and 4 for the hatcheries. And that those are sort of traditional ways that people set up their hotkeys. Now, excuse me. In terms of the actual mechanics of the game, usually people set up so that they change the hotkeys a little bit so that their hand doesn't move as much, and they like to use all 5 fingers in those hotkeys. So usually you want to use from your thumb to your pinky. A lot of people move hotkeys such as P, which is used for overlord speed. A lot of people will move that over on the keyboard to maybe a button like B or N, so they can use their thumb to hit that instead of having to shift their hand all the way over to the P button. There's people who spend a lot of time thinking about hotkeys. One setup is the core. It's a system that's designed to sort of help people use proper hotkeys using all five fingers to use camera hotkeys, single camera positioning. It's an interesting way to sort of try out and see how they do things. I don't like the way that the thumb is sort of used and the control and shift buttons are used. So I personally preferred sort of a more standard setup, but again, a lot of people use it. One other thing is how to set up your mouse in the game. There's 2 adjustments, and I'll show those while I'm streaming right now. The first one is in the game. So here I have Starcraft. Here's the game setup right here, right? And here I have my mouse on the screen. Looks like you can't see my mouse for some reason. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so here I have my screen. Okay, in the menu here you go to options, and then you go to controls, and here you have your mouse sensitivity. Okay. Generally, when you change your mouse sensitivity, it changes how close you're moving when your mouse is close. So you can move it up and down, and what it does is it changes a portion in the game where you're at. So I'll play a quick game and show you that. Play it as Zerg.